with another video on the physiology of singing. Yeah. That actually felt really good. I haven't actually sung in like 2 months, or nearly 2 months. I really haven't done a lot of singing other than like in the shower lately. And I know I took a bit of a hiatus there, but just been a busy couple months, started a job, blah, blah, blah. So, forgive me, I'm so sorry. But I was super motivated to record a video today because I got a new haircut, and it was like styled and everything by the guy, you know, and it's like, gotta document that my hair is done, because who knows, it might not look as good tomorrow. Hopefully it will, but anyway, so I believe I covered everything I really wanted to cover in the acoustics videos, although I did not rewatch myself, so I might not have. So if I left something off, please let me know, because I probably will watch myself to double check myself, but like, I don't know, watching myself is kind of a weird thing, so I don't know. Mostly I watch myself and go, really? That's what I look like? What am I doing? What? Why did I talk about that? What's going on? You know, so. All right. So today I figure let's get into a little bit of the physiology and some anatomy, some muscles of the vocal tract. So of the tube, the column essentially above your larynx, right? All the way to the lips. This is like an open air space, like if you're just hanging out, sitting around breathing, you know, it's just this open space from your mouth. It includes your mouth, and it includes your soft palate area, and it includes this part of your throat right in here, like in there, right? Before you get to your larynx. So everything above that, and then it takes a curve around to the lips, okay? So I think I'm going to break this up again because soft palate, I think, warrants its own video. Partly because I have some myths to debunk about the soft palate, and like using your soft palate, I feel like is sort of like this really generalized kind of overused statement that a lot of singers or new students especially get really confused by. So I just want to, like, you know, really get into the soft palate a bit for everybody. And then the tongue, I think, warrants its own video too, because the tongue is this, you know, funky little jumble of muscles that does all kinds of stuff. You know, and I might touch a little on like facial muscles some, but personally, I feel like as a voice teacher, like in the voice world, lips and stuff are a little less confusing, I think, partly because it's something you can see, right? Like you can totally see if a student is puckering their lips on an ooh or not. If they're just going ooh, like you can tell, right? So I feel like that isn't like as hard for people to grasp. But the vocal tract is a messy thing because it is the filter for our sound, right? Which I went through, like I did that whole yarn knitting thing where it's like the yarn is like, you know, a sound wave or whatever, and if it has harmonics and complex periodic wave, it's going to look like knitting, right? And that formants are what arise from the filter, from that air, that tube of air, allowing the sound waves to travel through it, and they're gonna like bounce off the walls, and some are gonna reflect back from the lips, and some are gonna reflect back, blah, blah. And they're gonna either join together and become stronger sound waves, so constructive interference, or they're gonna sort of dampen each other out, and that's destructive interference. And so whatever gets constructively interfered with, we say it's resonant. Okay, that is a like a harmonic or frequency that the vocal tract will resonate. Okay, form a standing wave, and those standing waves are the mouth, and it allows us to hear. Yay! That's how we hear each other speak. Is standing waves. They are super important. And so a lot of what like singers use the word resonance very differently. I think I talked about that a little than like voice scientists and acoustics, especially physicists and stuff, because resonance is like a physical phenomenon that actually exists in all kinds of physical matter, right? And you can't get away from it in math or physics or engineering. Like, resonance is all over the place, and it rules a lot of stuff. And it's like a really important concept for people in those fields to grab hold of, because it's like there all the time. It comes up a lot. So, but singers, I think, use it more in like a vocal quality kind of way, or in terms of sound quality, like they kind of use it in that way, or they use it in like you have to, if for opera singers especially, they talk about resonance a lot, and a lot of what they're talking about is, are you going to carry over an orchestra or not? So typically they're talking about singer's formant, and they might also talk about like vowel resonance, because you also want your audience to understand you, or to hear like clear Italian or clear French or clear German. You want to sound like you really are singing that language, that you're not just blah, 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 while you're up on stage. So it's that like balance, right? And so a lot of singers, tenors get obsessed with singer's formant, and they talk about resonance in the sense of like, am I actually producing enough power to get over an orchestra? Because poor tenors, these guys have it a little rough when like the range where they sing in happens to be like where the orchestra's pretty rich. So those guys, they can get kind of buried kind of easily. Like all those lovely tenor high notes they really have to resonate. They have to get that singer's formant. They have to put it in that sweet spot, essentially, right? So, and then people talk about mask resonance a lot. I'll get into that, I think, with soft palate stuff. I think I'm going to touch on that later. So today, the main thing, let's actually get to the meat here. Gosh, like 7 minutes in? Maybe I'll just leave this as an introduction now that I think about it. Maybe I'll just stop this one and record a new one. But I want to get into muscles of the pharynx, which is the throat, essentially. It's like the part above the larynx up to like the soft palate area is called velopharynx, right? So like the velum up there. And so the pharynx is essentially the part that's like, if you look at those sides and you see that curve, right? So I kind of think of like the oropharynx. You hear that too sometimes. Oro being the oral cavity, and pharynx being the back, the more throat, the more vertical cavity. And so the delineation of like, where is it the pharynx and where is it the mouth? A little muddy, But for my purposes, for this blog anyway, I'm mainly going to try to keep it to muscles that basically have to do with this space back here that's more of the vertical space, less of like what we traditionally think of as our mouth. Okay? Like colloquially. So that's what I want to get into a little bit, because mainly it's about the cue that some singers get of open the throat, right? I don't know if you've ever had a vocal coach say that, or a teacher say like, open your throat, or think of your throat being really big, or whatever cue it is to get more like oscuro into the sound. Usually they're looking for a little darker, richer sound, which can also be the case for belters if you're doing a role, like a Broadway role or something, where you want a richer sound quality. People might say like more open with the sound. That might be something they cue you with. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about how that maps to some of the physiology in that area. And then, like I said, I'll go on to the soft palate. We'll get to mask resonance, what folks are talking about with that, what I think they're talking about anyway, and hopefully start to demystify some of that. And the whole purpose of this demystifying all this resonance stuff, in my eyes, is that, as a singer, you're going to get cues from a lot of different people throughout your career, right? So you're going to have vocal coaches telling you stuff. You might even have, like, directors telling you, vocal stuff. Acting coaches will say something different, right? We all use the same terms in very different ways. So, like, if you're a classical singer who's decided to go into Broadway or learn how to belt, and you go to a teacher who really knows how to belt, they might be using, they might say a lot of, put it in the mask, and then, you as a classical singer, maybe you were told not to think that way, or they might say, put it in the nose or through the nose, and you're like, whoa, I was told that was bad, so like, why, I guess it's good in belt, and it's like, that might not be what you think they mean, might not actually be what they're really going for, you know what I mean? So the whole idea is to demystify it a little for singers especially, and also for beginning teachers, so that you know there's different ways of getting at the same concept, right? That physiologically there's kind of an underpinning for what you're trying to get at. Not that you have to tell your students what you're really going for physiologically. You can take a guess if you want, but also so that you have more tools in your belt for, like, okay, if I say it this way and they don't get it, maybe I can get at it this way and cue them more this way and they'll get it a little better. But particularly for young singers and for kind of people just starting out professionally, or they're just starting out as like a voice major, or maybe you're in high school and you're singing in choir, and then you're in your private lessons, and maybe in private lessons you're doing classical and you're doing belt, and then you do the musical theater, rehearsals after school, and then your theater director has a whole different vocabulary, right? So you're jumping from all these people telling you all these things, and they might be saying the same phrase, like raise your soft palate, or open your throat more, or put it through your nose. Like, you might hear that sometimes. That's not my favorite phrase, but people do say it. Or make sure you feel it in your mask, right here. Put the sound in your mask right here, or sing from your diaphragm, right? Which I covered in respiration. You might hear all these things, and high schoolers hear it like all the time because they're singing in multiple areas from people with varying backgrounds. And as much as a voice teacher would love for their high schooler to just listen to them, that's not realistic, voice teachers. High schoolers do need to listen to their choir director, and they do need to listen to their theater director, because if they want that stage experience and that stage time and the grade, a lot of times in choir at least, they're getting graded, they need to know how to navigate their voice from one area to the other, because they're doing that more often than they're seeing you, right? Like, when I taught a lot of high schoolers, it's like they're singing in choir, like, more than 5 hours a week, like every single day. And when they're in school, they're in choir, right? And then they come to see me 1 hour a week. So it's like, okay, we have to talk about, if your choir director tells you to do this with your voice, this is probably what they mean, and this is what they want from you, and this is a way for you to get at it without feeling like you're, tying your voice into little muscular knots that are just so fun. Okay? So that's the whole point. And resonance, I think, is where things get really muddy, because that's where you get into voice quality. You get into, this is where you get into like the voice, that the choir director might want a very different sound quality than the musical theater director, than the voice teacher. They might all have this different ideal sound they want you to go for. And they might be telling you essentially the same, like to do the same things, like raising your soft palate and do something with your tongue. They might be giving you cues with your tongue or opening your throat. They're throwing all this out at you, but when they give you examples, it sounds so different that you're like, but like, I was doing that yesterday with Miss So-and-so, and like, she wanted it this way, and now you're saying for me to do the same thing, but you want this completely different sound than what Miss So-and-so wants. Like, Mr. So-and-so wants a completely different thing than Miss So-and-so, and I'm really confused as a singer. So that's what I'm doing this for. And also for early, like, beginning voice teachers who might need to navigate this a little bit with their own students, especially if you have, like, school-age students and they're navigating that rough world of soloist and choir and, belt and pop versus classical. Blah, blah, blah. It gets very confusing. So this is essentially where a lot of that stuff diverges, and the sound qualities that people want are different. The kind of lingo they use is going to be different, and that's why I'm getting into it. All right, so I'm going to leave this one at this and move into pharyngeal muscles. I almost said muscles just to be funny, and then I changed my mind, so it just came out this really long muscles, which is, I guess, fine. It's par for the course. You guys know I'm a little bit weird, a little bit crazy, just a little bit. All right, so hopefully see you back for that. Bye, guys!